Welcome to the bold analysis. There is a threat from Uganda, and I don't just know whether our military forces or the leadership is taking keen interest in that threat, because someone just also tipped me about an article, or rather a statement that has just come from Uganda. And I want us to pay attention to that. But before it, let's look at just pass through a story here. When I was just doing this research, I've just bumped on this story that a senior assistant inspector general, Giteba Mwita, found dead at Matu home. And according to the story, is that Mwita was also the commandant, border police patrol unit. He fell unconsciously sudden at his home around midnight, and his colleagues were alarmed after they reached out to him on phone, and he was unavailable. Conspicuously, by absence from work, the officers rushed to his home and found him lying on the floor unconscious. Mwita was the commandant of the Security of Government Buildings and VIP Protection Unit before he was transferred to Rural Border Patrol Unit. If you look at the profile of his work, his death is something that really raised some eyebrows. One of the last public appearances was before the Senate, National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations chaired by Baringo Senator William Tumo, where he's talked about the banditry in the Northern Rift. So I'll just passing through that. Let's get directly to our analysis on this video. Ladies and gentlemen, so something happened some time back, and the oil diplomacy tussle between Kenya and Uganda is at the center of the threat that I think Uganda has issued to Kenya. So what happened? Where did it all start? On November 7th, President Museveni, Museveni, accused the Kenyan middlemen in the oil sector of inflating fuel prices in his country, and that the problems that we were facing here with oil were being exported to Uganda. Remember, Uganda used to buy oil from the Kenyan middlemen, and he directed state-owned Uganda National Oil Company, UNOC, to start importation of oil directly, a decision that was ratified by the Ugandan parliament a week later. So his complaint was about, what had been happening here is, in our G2G oil deal between the three oil marketing companies, Galana, Oryx, and the other one, it was Galana, Oryx, and I've forgotten the third one, was supposed to import oil from the three companies in Dubai. So the three oil marketing companies in Kenya were supposed to sell to the other 96 oil marketing companies, amongst which others sell to Uganda. So when Museveni got wind of it, and what triggered this was that despite of global prices going down, that could not be reflected in the pump. And Museveni was wondering, how is it that a whole bunch of companies in Uganda are buying oil from middlemen in the country, Kenya, and he was saying that they were moving out of the Kenyan oil deal with the Saudi Arabia. Remember, the Ugandan market was part of the bargain when Kenya was bargaining for the G2G deal with Saudi Arabia. So when they were buying oil on credit, they had to show proof that they are going to have market for that oil. And the Ugandan market was part of the package that Kenya presented in Saudi Arabia. Now, what happened is, UNOC, the Ugandan oil national oil company, rolled out oil importation of fuel, and continues to raid from Kenya oil marketing companies. Now, despite of Uganda filing an application with EPRA to be recognized as an oil marketing company in Kenya, Ruto's regime is yet to ratify the country's Uganda's plea, and they have failed, rather declined, to approve the UNOC as an oil marketing company in the Kenya. Remember, the reason why they have not approved is because of that G2G. Because of that G2G, any single drop of oil that is landing at Mombasa port should be from that G2G bracket, should be from Saudi Arabia. That is the agreement. And no one is allowed to import oil in the country away from the G2G. So I want you to get this clearly. Now, reports allege that Kenya feared, and Kenya is refusing, because Uganda would enjoy its infrastructure despite of reneging or rather rejecting the initial oil deal. Or clearly, they're saying, how do we approve? They're declining to approve the UNOC because Uganda has simply declined or has removed away from our G2G, which was, according to them, was a bit expensive, and even to the Kenyans, it's also expensive now. Uganda was also accused of failing to provide, Kenya is saying, that it failed to provide evidence of operating 5 licensed retail stations. Retail stations in Uganda? I don't think that is impossible. That one they can. And also a licensed depot in Kenya, among other issues. So the reason why EPRA has refused to approve the Uganda as an OMC in Kenya is, amongst other reasons, according to this article, the two of them is evidence of operating 5 licensed retail stations, and another one is licensed depot in Kenya. For example, I don't know how we are supposed to approve Uganda as an oil marketing company in Kenya. But now that is it. Uganda has issued an ultimatum that it will start importation of petroleum products on its own starting from February 2024. And that is not it. I want to get the second part. According to reports, Uganda has vowed to import fuel through Mombasa port with or without license. That is where you draw the line. How do you say, and someone who tipped me this article asked me, Kevin, can you get that line? What do Uganda mean by saying they will import oil through Mombasa port with or without license? What do you understand to that point? I just want to read what Kenyans think. What do you see? How? Because the port is the port of Mombasa. It is the northern corridor. There were 2 options of using Tanzania or Kenya. But they're saying we will import through Mombasa with or without the license. Now, according to what Uganda is saying, they're saying they want the country to allow them to concentrate on the importation process so as not to be subjected to the inflated prices by Kenyan oil marketers. So that on the transit, on moving that oil from here to Uganda, they will just rely on the Kenya pipeline. But on bringing importation, they want to import their own oil, not knowing that, the cartels in this sector have a way of getting their way through this. And one of the most likely things they are going to do is they will increase the tariffs of moving that crude oil from Mombasa port to Uganda. If Uganda do not buy from the oil marketing companies in Kenya, Uganda Museveni asked, why not buy from refineries abroad and transport through Kenya and Tanzania, cutting the cost created by middlemen? It is very true that our middlemen has been inflating the cost of oil. There is an economist I do follow, and I just check. This is it. Suspiciously, EPRA has used a rate of 93 euros for Moban crude oil in its press release, while Moban crude oil is currently actually trading at 76, that is euros. Kenya generally imports Moban crude oil for local use. Then they're saying fuel prices should be way lower. So fuel diplomacy is going to cause us more trouble The Ugandan Oil Corporation thus stated that it would not be involved in the transportation of fuel once it landed in Mombasa. It was not immediately clear how UNOC aimed to implement the ultimatum of using Kenyan ports to import fuel without license. How? I'm also asking, how? Fuel diplomacy is going to bring us some trouble. Hapa mbele. And even to know, the thing is more, Mudavadi was appearing before a committee and National Assembly Public Petitions Committee on Thursday. And Mudavadi said that Uganda issued an ultimatum. He's arresting some 41 Kenyans imprisoned on the country for allegedly killing 3 geologists and 2 Ugandan People's Defense Forces soldiers back in April. And he's saying, we are not going to release those Kenyans until they produce the real killers who committed the crime. And Mudavadi is saying he noted that Foreign Affairs was working with Uganda, but Uganda has failed to cooperate on that. Remember, 41 Kenyans are being arrested, not that they committed the crime, but they're being asked to produce those who committed the crime. So you can see the way fuel diplomacy is peeling very ugly. Just recently during the Madaraka Day celebration, not Madaraka, Jamhuri Day celebration, William Ruto invited East African heads of state. None came, and in fact they sent their juniors. Uganda even sent their prime minister, one of their prime ministers. You know, I think they have 3 prime ministers or 2, if I'm not wrong. They sent one. And one of the reports that came is that a delegation also came in the country way even before to renegotiate on that oil deal, but it was not given audience by William Ruto, simply because Uganda has failed, or Uganda has been exposing the G2G. Now, something may be annoying William Ruto, and I'm just making my guess. William Ruto is the man who does not want government to be exposed, and is on record telling journalists that mtangoja sana kuona scandal in my government. I think the fact that Museveni posted in Twitter and made it public his frustration, or rather his disdain to the oil deal, is something that annoyed William Ruto. Because what William Ruto would expect to be ideal situation of addressing the matter was maybe Museveni placing a call to him, then they talk, they make a state visit, then they sit and sign some bilateral ties between the 2 countries without it going to the media. Because immediately Museveni released that statement, it is the same time that Raila Odinga was also releasing the dossier on G2G. And since the dossier on G2G was released, no single EACC investigation, not even an inch, has been made in progress in terms of any investigation on G2G. So things also have happened. And an anger that Museveni exposed Kenya could be at the center of this. But I want to say this. We must be very careful, because I want to interpret this ultimatum just on oil diplomacy. We must get our oil diplomacy right, because Uganda is our trading partner. We've had quite of squabbles with Uganda, even, you know, because of emotions. We stopped milk products from Uganda coming to the country, allegedly protecting our milk farmers here. But of course, we were trying to suppress Uhuru Kenyatta's business profile. We've gotten into some very, just since William Ruto came into power, then that's 1 year, I think we've not been so much cooperative in terms of the East African region. So before I explain this, I want to humbly request you to subscribe to our channel. Click the button, click the subscription button, and share our videos. Thank you very much for those who've been supporting our podcast. If Ruto is not careful, the oil diplomacy can break, or rather is going to affect the border peace. One thing we share with Uganda is the border. And border is the trading hub, transition hub, the transition center between the two countries. So this threat that we will import through Uganda, whether we like it or not, must be understood deeply, and the government must interrogate deeply, because there's some few questions we need to ask. So if they're saying by force, with or without license, are they going to beat our execution? Are they telling us, are they telling William Ruto that we don't care on your officers on ground, on your custom officials, or on your execution? Number two, we need to ask a question. What are we importing from Uganda? Or what are we exporting to Uganda? Those two questions are very important because it borders trade. And we've had squabbles at the border. Even remember the discussion about Migingo. The more we entertain this and and in fact, Kenya is losing. That's the truth. And that is why I think we need to be very careful. Kenya is losing because we are the ones that are offering the transit revenue. We are getting the transit revenue. If the imports arriving to the country, we are the ones that are getting it. So on this, we will start reviving those Migingo issues. If you're not careful, we are going to end up into another squabble Uganda over the issues like Migingo. So that is why we need to be very careful and sensitive on this matter. It is not as casual as maybe government officers want to take it. All diplomacy can break down our border peace. Yes, with Uganda. And you remember, our border peace is also, apart from the Busia, we've also had the issues of the banditry, about how guns have been smuggled to Kenya, maybe through our borders, especially the Northern Rift. And because of challenges of water, some of pastoralist communities have had harsh moments in the Ugandan side when they cross looking for water. So there is a lot at stake. We are looking at oil diplomacy in a wider spectrum, and we need to open the view. We should not have the narrow view of the whole situation, because this is going to affect us, whether we like it or not. The oil diplomacy has an effect on our border peace. Number two, that oil diplomacy also stands at a very delicate space, and it can even break the East African community. It will go wrong. It will be a bad history, even for William Ruto as a president, that he goes down as the Kenyan president that broke down the East African community. And it has the potential. When this discussion about oil deal between Uganda and Kenya started, we have seen Uganda meeting with Rwanda, South Sudan, and Burundi, and the photos were shared about how they met, and they were thinking of abandoning the Kenyan route so that they can use the Tanzania route. Now, Kenya is becoming isolated on this. And if just at the moment we successfully, and this was started by Uhuru Kenyatta, we successfully managed to hold the East African community together. Remember, at one point, Kenya was the chairperson, had the position. Uhuru Kenyatta was the chairperson of the East African community. And over the years, if you read the history of East African community, Jomo Kenyatta did a very good job and was so much passionate about it. The man that also held it but was blowing hot and cold was Moi. Mwai Kibaki was strong, beat on it, but Uhuru Kenyatta broke the record because he was actually the man that really brought it together. And by the time Uhuru Kenyatta was leaving, I think Uhuru Kenyatta had a very good rapport with the East African presidents. But us, we seem to be breaking that. Number three, Ruto team and ourselves as Kenya, we stand to lose the transit revenue on imports passing through Kenya. So just because of oil, why don't we just forgo and give the UNOC, we approve them to be an oil marketing company so that they can import their own oil, because at the end of the day, that deal do not monopolize Uganda. Uganda is a country, their own constitution, their sovereignty. So if they want to pass and they've passed it through parliament, how do we come here and stop them? You know, we need to get it right. And that is why someone asked, have we changed our foreign policy, or is it still the old traditional pre-colonial policy? Have we changed? That question is coming. And this one goes to the security sector. Does that translate to a threat in your territory? When someone says, I will come whether, this is like whether you like it or not, I will report through the Mombasa port. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to read more, but I'm also giving it so that you can, I'm giving it open, so that you can also interpret and see what this probably means. Thank you.